You don't lose in relationships because you're not good enough. You lose because you ignore what your instincts were trying to warn you about from the very beginning. And the truth is, by the time most men realize it, they're already emotionally invested, already attached, already stuck, wondering how it all went wrong. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is not what you've been taught. In the early stage, when everything feels exciting, new, and full of possibility, that's exactly when the most important information is being revealed. Not through what she says, but through what she does. And most men miss it, not because they're unaware, but because they want it to work so badly, they choose not to see it. Attraction has a way of blinding logic. You meet someone, there's chemistry, there's curiosity, maybe even a sense of emotional connection that feels rare, and suddenly, your standards start bending. You excuse small inconsistencies. You ignore subtle discomfort. You tell yourself, it's too early to judge. But deep down, there's a quiet voice telling you something feels off. That voice is rarely wrong. Here's the hard truth. Red flags are rarely loud in the beginning. They are subtle, quiet, almost easy to dismiss. They don't come as dramatic moments. They come as patterns, a slight inconsistency, a small lack of respect, a behavior that doesn't quite align with what she says. And because it's small, you rationalize it, you downplay it, you give her the benefit of the doubt. But patterns don't lie, and what you ignore early doesn't disappear, it grows. The biggest mistake most men make is confusing potential with reality. They don't see her as she is, they see her as who she could become. They focus on the good moments, the chemistry, the connection, and they filter out the warning signs. They tell themselves, she's just busy, she's just going through something, she'll change once things get serious. But what you're actually doing is building emotional attachment on unstable ground. And when the foundation is unstable, it doesn't matter how strong the feelings are, it will collapse. Let me explain something most people won't tell you. Early behavior is the purest form of someone's truth. In the beginning, people are usually on their best behavior. They are more attentive, more engaged, more intentional. So if you're already noticing inconsistency, lack of effort, or subtle disrespect at that stage, it's not going to improve. It's going to amplify over time. This is where emotional discipline comes in. Not reacting out of fear of losing her, not chasing because you feel uncertain, but observing, paying attention, letting actions speak louder than words. Because attraction without awareness is dangerous. It pulls you in while quietly ignoring the signs that would have protected you. Now here's something deeper most men don't understand. Women test emotional stability early on, not intentionally in a manipulative way, but subconsciously. They observe how you respond to inconsistency, to uncertainty, to emotional shifts. If you lose composure, chase harder, or abandon your standards, it signals that you are driven by emotion, not grounded in self-respect. And that changes how they see you. Respect isn't built through effort. It's built through boundaries. And boundaries are tested in subtle ways early on. If she cancels plans without real effort to reschedule, that's information. If she's hot and cold in communication, that's information. If she shows interest only when it's convenient for her, that's information. But most men ignore information when it conflicts with what they want to believe. You have to understand, your ability to walk away early is directly tied to your self-worth. If you need her validation, you will tolerate behavior that slowly erodes your confidence. You will stay longer than you should, you will invest more than you should, and eventually, you will feel the imbalance, but by then, you're already attached. That's why awareness in the early stage is everything. Because the game isn't about winning her. It's about recognizing whether she aligns with you at all. And when you shift your mindset from, how do I keep her, to, is this even right for me? Everything changes. You stop chasing, you start observing, you stop ignoring red flags, you start respecting your own standards. This is where most men separate themselves, not by saying the right things, not by trying harder, but by seeing clearly, by not letting attraction override awareness, by understanding that what feels good in the moment isn't always what's right long-term. And here's the part that might challenge you. Some of these red flags won't look obvious. They won't scream, walk away. They'll whisper. They'll make you question yourself. They'll make you wonder if you're overthinking. You're not. If something feels off early on, it's worth paying attention to. not reacting emotionally, but observing logically. Patterns reveal truth, and truth early is a gift, even if it's uncomfortable, because the cost of ignoring it is far greater. So ask yourself this right now. Have you ever ignored a sign in the beginning, only to regret it later? Have you ever felt that quiet instinct telling you something wasn't right, but you stayed anyway? Be honest. Let's get into the first set of red flags, those early behaviors that most men completely ignore because they seem small or harmless. But these are the behaviors that quietly erode respect, attraction, and emotional balance before you even realize it. They're subtle, but if you miss them, you'll pay the price later. The first red flag is inconsistency in communication. She texts you enthusiastically one day and then disappears the next. She engages deeply when it's convenient, but when you reach out, it feels like a chore. Most men interpret this as she's busy or she has a lot going on and they excuse it. But here's the truth. Women are wired to respect and invest in men who hold their own value consistently. When you tolerate hot and cold behavior early, you train her mind to treat you like optional. You become expendable. The second red flag is lack of effort in planning or initiating. If she never offers to make plans, never reschedules when she cancels, or only agrees to things that fit her schedule perfectly, that's a pattern. Early on, it may feel harmless. You tell yourself, she's independent, or she's busy. But attraction isn't just about what feels good, it's about how much mutual investment exists. A woman who isn't willing to match your energy and effort early is signaling her priorities, and tolerating that teaches her your availability has no boundaries. The third red flag is subtle disrespect in words or tone. It might be teasing that crosses a line, sarcasm that stings more than it entertains, or dismissive remarks that make you question yourself. Early on, many men laugh it off, thinking, she's just joking. But psychology is clear. Repeated micro-disrespect shapes emotional perception. Women notice if a man allows his boundaries to be tested without pushback. If you tolerate small disrespect, it grows into bigger patterns later. Respect is built on early enforcement of standards. Fourth, watch for emotional manipulation. Disguised as drama or neediness. She might guilt you for not texting back immediately, question your attention, or make you feel responsible for her mood swings. Many men mistake this for passion or insecurity they can fix. But emotional manipulation early signals a lack of self-regulation, and if you tolerate it, you are setting a precedent that your emotional energy is negotiable. That's the fastest way to lose attraction and respect simultaneously. Fifth, pay attention to avoidance of vulnerability or honesty. If she dodges important topics, is evasive about her intentions, or hides parts of her life, it's not about privacy, it's about alignment. Emotional openness early is rare, and those who show it demonstrate trustworthiness. If she consistently hides truths, delays clarity, or leaves you guessing, that's a red flag most men ignore because it's uncomfortable to confront reality. Tolerating this keeps you in the dark while building attachment that isn't reciprocated. Sixth, note: entitlement or selfishness disguised as independence. Early on, it might seem charming that she prioritizes her needs or has strong opinions. But if every decision revolves around her convenience and she rarely considers yours, that's a pattern. Tolerating this teaches her that her preferences outweigh your boundaries. Most men ignore it early, telling themselves, I'll adjust, I'm flexible. But attraction thrives on mutual respect, not one-sided accommodation. Seventh, observe inconsistency between words and actions. She might say she wants a relationship, but her behavior doesn't match her claims. Maybe she avoids meeting your friends, cancels plans last minute, or shows excitement in some areas and apathy in others. Most men rationalize this by saying she's figuring things out, but early inconsistency signals her priorities and intentions. Ignoring it is like building a house on sand. You're investing in illusions, not reality. Eighth, watch for subtle attempts to control or pressure. Early in the talking stage, some women test limits by hinting at expectations that feel premature, demanding attention, creating emotional urgency, or implying consequences for your choices. Most men ignore these cues, thinking she's passionate or I can handle this. But allowing subtle control early teaches her that boundaries are negotiable, which diminishes attraction. Ninth, be mindful of negative energy or patterns of drama. Complaints about exes, friends, or past experiences are normal, but if negativity dominates conversations, it's an emotional red flag. Women who constantly bring tension or drama into early interactions are signaling patterns that will continue. Men often dismiss this as she's just venting, but tolerating constant negativity quietly erodes your own emotional balance and makes you more susceptible to future manipulation. Here's the key psychological principle. Patterns reveal priorities and values faster than words ever can. In the early stage, women are testing alignment just as much as men are. But if a man tolerates red flags instead of observing, he trains her mind to treat him as optional, negotiable, or available without boundaries. This is why most men get burned. They want attraction to feel effortless, but they ignore the subtle behaviors that quietly determine long-term compatibility. Early red flags are not meant to punish you. They're gifts. They allow you to see who someone is before emotional attachment grows. Ignoring them is like walking toward a cliff because the view is beautiful. The signs are subtle, but unmistakable if you pay attention. So here's the truth. The earlier you recognize these patterns, the easier it is to make decisions that protect your energy, respect, and future. Walking away early doesn't mean failure, it means emotional intelligence. It means understanding that attraction without respect, investment, and alignment is temporary at best. Now let's get to why most men ignore these red flags. This is where the real psychology comes in, the part no one talks about. It's not that men are clueless or stupid, it's that attraction and emotion play tricks on the brain. When you're excited, curious, or even infatuated, your mind starts filtering information, highlighting the things you want to see and ignoring the things you need to see. The first trap is the halo effect. When a woman shows a few traits you like, she's attractive, funny, or charming, your brain starts giving her a pass on everything else. Suddenly, inconsistency, subtle disrespect, and lack of effort are dismissed as minor quirks. The halo effect is dangerous because it overrides rational evaluation, replacing it with hope and fantasy. Most men fail to check if the attraction is real or just an emotional projection. The second trap is fear of being alone or missing out. Many men subconsciously tolerate red flags because they worry no one else will come along, or because they're emotionally attached to the idea of being with someone. This fear creates a blind spot. Instead of observing objectively, you rationalize her flaws, telling yourself, I'll fix it, or she'll change over time. The truth is, patterns rarely change if boundaries aren't enforced. Fear of loss makes men compromise their standards and ignore reality. Third, chasing dopamine instead of clarity. Early attraction triggers a flood of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, when you get texts, laughs, or attention. This chemical reward feels good, so you unconsciously start prioritizing it over real information. You focus on moments of pleasure instead of patterns of behavior. She may flirt, compliment, or tease you, and your brain interprets it as success, while the red flags quietly pile up. Most men fall into this trap without even noticing. Fourth, there's ace overinterpretation of isolated actions. You see one good gesture and assume she's perfect. One thoughtful text, one laugh, or one shared interest suddenly becomes evidence that everything else can be overlooked. But human behavior is about patterns, not isolated moments. If attention is inconsistent, respect is missing, or boundaries are pushed, those isolated moments cannot compensate. Ignoring patterns is the silent killer of attraction. Fifth, attachment bias. Emotional attachment grows faster than logic in the early stage. As you invest time, thought, and energy, your brain starts valuing connection over evidence. You want her to be right, so you unconsciously rewrite reality. She's just busy. She's stressed. She doesn't mean it that way. Attachment bias tricks you into tolerating behaviors that would otherwise be red flags. Once you're invested, it's far harder to see clearly. Sixth, rationalization and hope. Men tell themselves stories. She's new to this. She's just cautious. She has her reasons. Hope is a powerful motivator. It keeps you emotionally invested even when your gut says otherwise. But hope cannot replace reality. Hope delays action. Hope erodes standards. Most men fall into this trap because it feels better than facing uncomfortable truths early. Seventh, comparison to past experiences. Some men ignore red flags because they feel the chemistry is better than anything they've had before. They think, at least she's not like my ex, or she's different from the women I've dated. This comparison blinds you to red flags because your brain focuses on contrast rather than alignment. Novelty does not equal compatibility, yet men confuse it for value. The eighth trap is overemphasis on attraction over alignment. Most men prioritize physical chemistry, humor, or flirtation while ignoring behavioral patterns that indicate respect, investment, and emotional maturity. Physical attraction feels immediate. Behavioral alignment reveals long-term compatibility. When you ignore patterns, you are sacrificing sustainable attraction for short-term pleasure. Finally, the sunk cost fallacy. Once you've invested time, attention, or emotion, you feel compelled to continue, even when red flags appear. Your mind says, I've already spent this much, I can't quit now, and suddenly tolerating negative behavior seems rational. But every day you ignore red flags, you deepen attachment to something that may not be aligned with your values. Here's the key lesson. Awareness is power, but only if paired with action. Observing red flags is useless if you ignore them. Recognizing patterns early protects your emotional energy, preserves respect, and keeps attraction healthy. The moment you tolerate inconsistency, disrespect, or manipulation, you signal that your boundaries are negotiable, and attraction responds accordingly. So how do you protect yourself? First, observe patterns, not moments. Second, check your emotional biases. Are you rationalizing, hoping, or chasing dopamine? Third, enforce boundaries. Early. If something doesn't feel aligned, acknowledge it and act accordingly. Emotional intelligence in the early stage is the difference between wasted months and meaningful connection. Now we reach the final and most critical part, how to take control early, spot red flags, and protect your emotional energy before attachment grows too strong. This is where theory meets action, the part most men skip and why they end up frustrated, burned, or stuck in unbalanced relationships. The first principle is observation without bias. In the early stage, watch what she does more than what she says. Words are cheap. Actions reveal intent. Does she follow through on commitments? Does she respect your time, your boundaries, and your priorities? Is her energy consistent or scattered? These patterns are psychological indicators of character. And ignoring them is the single biggest mistake men make. Second, trust your instincts. That quiet voice in your mind, the one that whispers, something's off, is not paranoia. It's subconscious pattern recognition. Your brain is picking up subtle inconsistencies, micro behaviors, and emotional cues that logic hasn't yet processed. The moment you feel discomfort, pause. Don't dismiss it. Emotional awareness in the early stage separates men who attract quality women from those who settle for drama. Third, set boundaries immediately. Boundaries are the invisible force that defines who you are and what you accept. If she cancels plans without effort to reschedule, acknowledge it and step back. If she tests your patience with manipulation, call it out or disengage. Boundaries are not threats. They are expressions of self-respect. Women instinctively respond to men who honor their own value, and ignoring red flags signals that you lack standards. Fourth, practice emotional detachment while observing. This doesn't mean being cold. It means remaining calm and objective while letting her actions reveal truth. Detached observation prevents chasing, overinvestment, and early emotional entanglement. Most men fail because they let infatuation override critical thinking. Emotional detachment allows you to assess alignment without losing attraction, creating a balance between interest and self-respect. Fifth, create a mental checklist of red flags. You now know the 9 key behaviors: inconsistency, lack of effort, subtle disrespect, emotional manipulation, avoidance of honesty, entitlement, mismatch of words and actions, subtle control attempts, and negativity. Keep these in mind during early interactions. Recognize them, acknowledge them internally, and make decisions before attachment grows. Awareness without action is wasted knowledge. Sixth, don't rationalize or hope for change. Attraction can trick you into believing she'll adjust, that her priorities will shift, or that time will fix incompatibility. This is a dangerous fallacy. People rarely change patterns without awareness and effort on their part. Tolerating red flags in the hope of change only creates regret later. The strongest relationships begin with alignment, not hope. Seventh, practice the art of walking away gracefully. Walking away isn't rejection, it's recognition. It's honoring your own energy, standards, and emotional investment. When a red flag appears, you can disengage calmly, without drama or over-explanation. Women respect men who uphold boundaries because it signals emotional stability, self-respect, and integrity. Walking away early is powerful psychology that protects your heart and reinforces respect. Eighth, observe how she reacts to your boundaries. True character reveals itself in response to resistance. Does she respect your limits, communicate openly, and adjust behavior without pressure? Or does she escalate drama, guilt, or testing? This moment is a psychological litmus test. Respect and attraction are built when boundaries are met with accountability and mutual effort, not tolerated or ignored. Ninth, maintain self-worth and alignment with life goals. Early-stage attraction often tempts men to compromise priorities for attention or approval. Don't do it. Emotional stability and self-confidence are magnetic. Women sense men who are grounded in their purpose and values. Compromising early for validation signals weakness and optionality. Attraction grows when you demonstrate that your energy, time, and attention are precious, non-negotiable resources. Finally, combine awareness, boundaries, and emotional discipline into daily practice. Observe patterns, trust instincts, enforce standards, detach emotionally, and be willing to walk away. This is not about playing games, it's about preserving respect, attraction, and emotional energy. Men who master this early stage don't just avoid toxic relationships, they naturally attract women who are aligned, respectful, and genuinely invested. Ask yourself, which of these red flags do you find hardest to recognize or enforce boundaries against? Comment your honest answer below. And if this insight hit hard, like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Who needs to understand how to see red flags early and protect themselves from wasted time, effort, and emotional energy? Remember, the early stage is your opportunity to see clearly, act wisely, and protect your heart. Ignore it, and you'll learn the hard way. See it, respect it, and you'll save years of frustration while attracting women who truly align with your standards and values.